still gonna need someone to like hum the Game of Thrones theme song. You are now tuned in to a podcast special featuring me, Mike Boyd, Azim, Pat. We are here to discuss. Why you stop?
That's all I know.
We gotta get the. Oh, that was good. Alright, so we are here to discuss what we think is going to happen in season 8 of Game of Thrones.
AKA the greatest show ever created.
The greatest show ever created, but fuck them and fuck HBO for making us wait like 2 years.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. Because like, I was thinking...
Ended in, I think June of 2017? When did the season 7 end?
That was 16, right?
Would have been like 8.
No, 17. Yeah. It's 19.
17.
Yeah,
Because they said it was going to be about a year and a half wait, but it's been closer to about 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was like, well, what if I die? Like,
yeah.
Never.
That's literally what everybody was saying.
Else. Like,
everybody was saying, they're like, what, we got to wait over a year? Like, okay, just can't die now.
Like, do you know how hard it is to try to stay alive? Like, on purpose? Like,
imagine a person who's like suicidal with like, shit, do I kill myself now or wait a year?
Gotta wait.
The show's actually been a lot better than how the books have been. People have been waiting for Winds of Winter for about 17 years.
Have you read all the books?
Yeah, read all 5.
Nice.
And like every time they're like, oh, George R. Martin's doing something else, he's doing another show. Like people online are like, just finish the fucking books, you know? The guy can't do anything. He can't go out to a restaurant and eat. People are like, why aren't you working on Winds of Winter? Like finish it, you know? That's what.
He's taking his time, man. He's taking his time.
Well, it can't come out now because
I think that's why he was tinkering around with putting it out like last year, and then they were just let the show finish up. Yeah. Just let the show finish up, and then put it out.
I mean, he's like a executive producer, so he already told like D.B. Weiss and David Benioff like how it ends, right? Like he sat down with them. He was like, all right, this is what I want winning. Just do it this way.
From the jump, they've known, and he's like, it's basically like they're working off of an outline. After the 5th book was pretty much done, they were done a lot of the stuff in there. He was pretty much like, this is how it's going to end, and they've changed a lot of the stuff, but they're going off of an outline. I think how it ends in the show is going to be pretty much how it ends in the books as well. A little bit different ways getting to the point, but that's how it's going to be. Whoever's on the throne at the end of the show is going to be the same person on the throne at the end of the books.
Nice. No, I'm glad with the consistency. I mean, I never read the books. Mike, you obviously never read the books either.
And I don't. How long were they?
1,000 pages, some of them.
Jeez.
Yeah, the original Game of Thrones was shorter, but Clash of Kings there's a lot of material there.
That's not gonna happen.
So like I was here like with the comparison with the books and the show. There's like huge like age differences between like how old the people are in the show compared to how they are in the books, because like there aren't a lot of characters like in their teens and stuff like that.
Daenerys is 13.
Yeah, so
and you think like Rickon. You saw when Rickon died, he was he was as tall as Ramsay was. Yeah. He was probably 11 or 12. In the book, he's like 4 years old. He's a toddler.
Jeez.
But I mean, you gotta think. So in the books,
does he die in the books?
No, in the books there's a totally different storyline. He's actually, they think he's living in an island called Skagos, which is in the north, and people that are there are rumored to be cannibals. So it's a little interesting. Davos is supposed to go out and find him, and that's kind of where they left it in the last book. But he's considered to be alive and well at that point. That's one of the whole things that they went kind of in a different direction. Sansa never married Ramsay. He was married to somebody else that he thought was Arya. Mance Rayder was still alive. The whole thing that happened in the North, Stannis is still alive. They changed a lot of that.
That's good. That actually makes me happy, because I was actually like very sad when Rickon died, and very sad the second time like for Stannis, just because that red lady just let him down, just like had to kill his daughter.
Yeah.
That
honestly.
He's like, you're the chosen one, like, you're the king, and then, like, everyone was like, Stannis Baratheon. I thought Stannis was big shit, but he never won anything.
Yeah.
Like, ever. So.
They didn't do book Stannis enough of, they didn't do him well enough, I thought, in the show. I thought Stephen Delane was great as Stannis Baratheon. I think they got the right actor, but again, everything you saw. I mean, he won the battle above the wall, but Battle of Blackwater, you know, he lost, and it was a very stupid way to lose. He didn't send a scout ahead to find out the Lannister army was moving, and that's why he lost. And actually, in the book, it was kind of interesting. They trapped his ships in the bay there, Blackwater Bay. They pulled a chain across, and the chain was like doused with wildfire. And they set that ablaze too, so he couldn't retreat. And actually, Braun, that's his actual sigil is the chain, the long chain, because he was the one who did that. So he was actually a pretty cool character. His backstory is awesome too. I mean, he held Storm's End during Robert's Rebellion with a small garrison of people, and you know, he managed to survive the war, basically eating dogs and horses and whatever else. And that's actually how he met Davos. Davos, they call him the Onion Knight. When basically the whole garrison was starved out, he was able to get his ship through, you know, the blockade and managed to feed them long enough that they were able to survive the rest of the war. But because he was a smuggler, Stannis took his fingers still, and that was one of his things. You know, all the good you do doesn't unwash the bad. So he was a very rigid person, and he had a code. He was kind of like Ned Stark and kind of like Jon Snow and all that. I mean, he had a code that he lived by, and he believed in honor and everything. But he was just too everything was too black and white, you know, and he took things a little too far. I think that's why the Seven Kingdoms didn't embrace him, even though he had the rightful claim to the throne. I think people just thought he was a fanatic. And he showed that at the end. I mean, burning his daughter and such. I mean, they were right about it. But in the book, he's a lot less rigid. I think he has a lot of the same characteristics, but he wasn't as involved, I think, with Melisandre as he is in the show. The show kind of focused on her a lot more.
Now, you said Stannis was the rightful heir to the throne.
Yeah.
Right? Now, there's been a lot of talk about that, which is why everyone's fighting in the series. Who do you guys think actually should be on the throne? Not who you want to be, I guess, but like saying like just from lineage and because you know how they have Targaryens. You know, obviously Daenerys has a claim.
Mm-hmm. Obviously,
knowing who Jon Snow is, he has a claim. And then you have what's the Robert's bastard son? Yeah, he has a claim. Who do you guys think should be on the throne? Just,
I mean,
is that a tough question?
No. I mean, it's not necessarily tough. It's kind of like, I mean, you're basically talking about who's the rightful heir, like who actually deserves to basically be there. I don't know, that's tough because I mean, you know, you had the Mad King, right, who was just crazy, considering like he killed the amount of people that he did. So I don't believe a Targaryen should basically be on the throne because you don't want to repeat the same thing. Obviously, Daenerys, she's like power hungry now because considering she has dragons. Jon has no idea who he even is, but we don't even know what kind of king Jon would actually be. So I mean, I guess you could basically say that Baratheon should be back on the throne. I mean,
that's the easiest and safest bet.
Yeah, I mean, I'd probably consider Baratheon to basically go back on there.
I mean, so the Baratheons overthrew the Targaryens, and the reason why, when that war broke out, when Robert's Rebellion broke out, there was 4 leaders. There was Hoster Tully, who came in late, and he raised his political position by marrying off his 2 daughters. He was able to kind of increase the power of his family. He got what he wanted, and he was older. Same with Jon Arryn. Jon Arryn didn't have an heir. He was older. So he really wouldn't have made a good king. So it really came down to Robert Baratheon and Ned Stark. Ned Stark didn't want the attention. Robert Baratheon loved it. And he actually had a relative in the past that was a Targaryen. I think it was his great aunt. So he had a little bit of a claim in the family sense as well. Once that line took over, it should have been Baratheon kings. But the Baratheons are all dead, except for Gendry. He's not legitimized. And he's a blacksmith from Fleabottom. I mean, what type of king would he make?
Yeah, it's true. Makes good sense.
So you got to look at, who's left? Well, you have Cersei, who is the Mad Queen. I mean, she blew up the Sept of Baelor, and it's something that to discuss Jaime. I mean, that's why Jaime killed Aerys Targaryen. She was going to do the same thing. Mm-hmm. So when he goes back and he sees her in power and he knows the Sept of Baelor blew up, I mean, he's horrified. There's a couple times last season where he was horrified by a lot of things she did. When he mentioned Tommen's death, that they never grieved over it, and she kind of just blew it off. Like it was nothing. He was disgusted by her. I think that's why part of the reason why he's heading north. I mean, she doesn't have the temperament to be queen. And you look at Daenerys. Yeah, I mean she's ready to lead. She's somebody who can inspire people to follow her. Mm-hmm. She's done it throughout the entire series. But at the same time, too, if we're talking about claims, Jon Snow being male and actually being born before her has more of a claim. Yeah. Rhaegar was the heir to the throne. As soon as he died, the passed on to his living son. Yeah. That's why he had Arthur Dayne guarding him, and it was Gerald Hightower at the battle of Tower of Joy when he was birthed. It was because he was next in the line of succession. They were defending their king. He said, why weren't you protecting your prince on there? Well, they were protecting their prince. It was Jon. Mm. So, Jon actually has the best claim to it, but has Jon really inspired a lot of people to follow him? Yes and no. The Night's Watch killed him.
Yeah.
But they put a dagger in his heart. But the Free Folk, on the other hand, they believe in him.
But I don't think, like, the Night's Watch, I think that was all, like, jealousy, though.
Well, I mean, they're obviously were pissed. They're like, oh, why did you allow the Free Folk, to go over the wall? That's, like, never ever been happened before. Yeah. And why did you do that? Like, you're Lord Commander. Why did you allow this to basically happen? So they were just lashing out. And, that scene, like, when they kill him, you can just see, like, on their faces, they have, like, no regret whatsoever. Like, this was already planned. This is what they wanted to do.
It's for a watch.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, Jon, you've seen, obviously, his character development throughout the entire series. Like, he was a nobody in, like, season 1. Nobody even, like, remembered who he was. Yeah. Everybody was like, Robb Stark, Ned Stark, Robb is going to basically be king one day, maybe. And then you just have Jon, who's a bastard, who has basically just no relevancy whatsoever in season 1. And now you see him in season, 8. Like, he's working, like, with Daenerys. Obviously, he has no idea who Daenerys is, which I'm sure is going to be, like, I don't know. I mean, how do you think they're going to basically bring that up with, like, that entire sequence? Like, hey, Jon, like, do you know who you are?
As soon as Samwell comes back.
Yeah.
I personally like the meme that's going around on Facebook where it says, welcome back, Aegon Targaryen.
Yeah.
To Winterfell. They got a banner hanging down at Winterfell, and he's looking like, what the hell? That would be the best way to do it.
Yeah.
But, no, they're, obviously, he's going to sit with Sam, and he's going to sit with Bran, and they're going to explain everything to him. And obviously, going forward, I mean, so the Targaryens, they were okay with incest because that was just part of their culture, and they wanted to keep their bloodlines pure. He hasn't been raised that way.
No.
So, I mean, to him, it's going to come as a shock. So that's going to be interesting to see what their dynamic. I mean, obviously, they were in a fresh relationship. So, you know how that is when you first start with somebody. You like to be around that person 24/7. Obviously, he's going to find that news out, and he'll probably be a little distant. And she'll probably wonder why.
Yeah, I mean, but do you feel like once, Jon finds out that information, and Daenerys finds out too, like, how do you think Daenerys is gonna react? Is she gonna look at Jon as a threat? Be like, okay, like, ooh, now.
But he already meant to knee.
I mean, yeah, I guess, but her thing has always been, I want the throne, right? So now, if she finds out that Jon is her nephew, like, how does she go about that? Does she say that, okay, I want you to rule with me, or now you're basically a threat to me getting to the throne?
Well, I don't think none of that's gonna matter, because I think that she knows, because he has his own thing going anyway, where he could have taken over had he beat the Lannisters and everything, right?
Yeah.
I don't think he cares about the throne and all that shit. I just think he told him straight up, like, I just want to save my people and stop the White Walkers, and that's it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think he really cares about all that.
That's what he's focused on, because remember the entire in season 7 when you have obviously Cersei, you have Daenerys, you have basically everybody from like season 1 like finally being together, and like they're like, okay, we have proof now of like a White Walker. This is the biggest threat. It's not these people that are trying to go for the throne. It's the White Walkers that are coming, and they're not going to stop because they just want to murder everybody and kill everybody. And then obviously we're going to figure out like what happens with that storyline as well, because the only like thing that we have is the Dragon Glass, which is the only thing that can actually kill the White Walkers.
Valyrian Steel too.
Yeah. So Valyrian Steel.
Yeah. I mean, the interesting thing is, it's there's a lot of speculation going around. What will Daenerys do? I think Daenerys is going to die in the final season. I think that's signed, sealed, delivered. If you go back and you watch season 2, and I know you've watched it multiple times. Have you watched multiple times?
I've only watched the series one time all the way through.
Okay.
But my thing is like once the series ends, then I'll actually be able to sit down and dissect everything.
I might watch it as the new season's on, just to.
I mean, it's like an hour. It's like an hour part of your day. Like there's.
Yeah.
You gotta basically take time out, because you want to be able to, like with Game of Thrones, when I'm watching it, I'm just literally like listening, like trying to basically comprehend what exactly is going on. That's the type of show it is, because that draws you in, and you're like, okay, what's gonna happen next? It isn't really like a show that you can have on in the background.
Right.
You kind of want to be able to like focus.
You gotta engross yourself in it.
Yeah. So that's just how I am with that show.
So in season 2, she was in Qarth. Everybody remembers Qarth.
Yeah.
She locks Arya Darksos in the safe at the end, and everybody kind of remembers that. But the most important scene was when she goes to the House of Undying. The House of Undying is where the Warlocks were, and they were ones who stole her dragons, and of course she sets the guy on fire. Everybody remembers she gets her dragons back. But the scene before that, when she actually enters, they show her a bunch of visions from the future. And the most important vision was when she was in the throne room. And you look at the throne room, and it looks like ash or it looks like snow. It could be either or. I mean, winter is setting, and the throne room in the Red Keep is all burned out. There's no ceiling to it. It's completely destroyed. And right before she's getting ready to touch the throne, she gets distracted. And she gets close to it, but she never actually touches it. And if you remember, she walks through a doorway, and she comes through the wall. And then after that, she walks a little bit further, and she's reunited with her son and Khal Drogo, her one true love. And to me, the way I interpret that is she gets close to the throne, but she never touches it. She goes north to the wall, and then after that, she dies. Because she's in the afterlife. She's with the two people that left this world that she truly loved. So, to me, she's going to get close to the throne in season 8, but she's going to die before she ever gets there.
Is that what they meant by the sun and the moon will meet again, or something like that?
See, I don't know about.
I think someone said that.
Yeah.
Khal Drogo said that.
Yes, he did. Now I don't know if that's a callback to that. That I'm unsure about. What I am sure about is I do think she's going to die before she ever gets to the throne. I don't know, and the big rumor is that she's pregnant. I don't know if the show has enough time for her to go through a whole pregnancy before the dawn comes. So it'll be interesting. A lot of people have said, John's going to raise the baby by himself, but again, they're going to have to set the final 6 episodes over a 9-month span. And I don't know if they're going to do that. I mean, the White Walkers are going to advance pretty quickly, I got to imagine. They're right now, I mean, they just crossed through East Watch by the Sea. The next place that they would hit would be Last Hearth, which would be, that's the Umbers. And you saw the Umbers. The Umbers were the family that had the big chains. They fought at Battle of the Bastards, guy with the long red hair. Tormund killed him. He was an Umber. He was the one who brought Rickon back. He killed the Dire Wolf. They're the house closest to the wall, so they'll hit Last Hearth first. And basically, they're going to try to hit every house along the way if you're the Night King, because you want to add as many numbers to your army as possible before you go and you hit Winterfell. So they'll probably try to hit a lot of the northern houses first. Some might slow them down a little bit, but the whole thing with the Night King's pretty interesting too. So he's going to try to hit as many houses as he can. But is he going to use the dragon in order to destroy a lot of these places? I mean, if he does, he's going to be cutting into his numbers. To me, it never made any sense that he had the dragon. I mean, the dragon destroyed the wall. You need him to destroy the wall. He doesn't need the dragon at this point.
I think the dragon is more for, shock value for us.
It is.
Just like, oh, shit, take the dragon. Because, wait, what are they doing, digging in the ice or whatever? And then they just pull the dragon out.
Yeah, and then you see its eye. Obviously, it's blue.
Yeah.
So, I mean...
But also, I think it's just to combat... they got 2 dragons. I should at least have 1.
Yeah, Drogon and...
But how did and somebody else said that to me. They said, well, you know what? It's to combat the other 2 dragons. But he threw that ice spear and killed that one so easily. He can do it to the other 2.
I mean, that too, but it's like...
What are the other 2 dragons' names? There's Drogon,
Viserion, and Rhaegal were the 3 dragons. Now, Rhaegal and Drogon are still alive.
Yeah.
Which one's the biggest one?
Drogon.
Is that the one
that's the black one. He's always been the biggest one.
Drogon's the one that burned everybody with obviously Lannister.
Yeah.
That's the one.
Now, he if you look in the beginning, too, his egg was bigger than everybody else. So that he was meant to be the biggest dragon. But then the way they always talked about the dragons in that world of Song of Ice and Fire was that the dragons will kind of be like goldfish. They'll grow as long as they have the room to grow. If they're roaming free, they'll continue to get large. The reason why he's much larger than the other two at this point is because she penned the other two up in the Pyramid Marine. So they didn't grow a whole lot during that. They grew. I mean, they broke their chains, but they didn't grow at the same rate he did. So it's interesting. And the Targaryens, the reason why they believe like Balerion, the Black Dread, when he first crossed the Narrow Sea and they were taking Westeros, it was enormous. I think almost double the size of what Drogon is now. He was a huge dragon. And it's because, he had a free reign to go wherever he wanted. As soon as the Targaryens started housing him in the Dragon Pit, which we saw at the end of the season, they started to get smaller. But I think also, too, a lot of it has to do with magic. They don't talk about it a whole lot in the show. But if you remember, going back to Season 2 again, the Red Comet going over the sky. And then very end of Season 1, you saw it. I think that was a symbol of magic coming back to the world. And that's why they were able to birth the dragons again. I think magic was kind of going away. That's why the dragons were getting smaller. And now it's kind of returned to the world. And Daenerys was one of the ones who ushered it in, along with the comet. And I think that's why now, you have the 3 dragons. If they find more dragon eggs, theoretically, you could hatch them again the same way. Will they? No, not in the show. We won't have time for it. But, now that magic back in the world, they probably could do that going forward. So it's interesting. But again, to have that dragon, the Night King's main power is him being able to go like this and the dead rise.
Yeah.
As long as they're not burned up. What does the dragon do? It burns everything up. So you're cutting into your army's numbers. Now he might have a big enough army to take Westeros as it is, but
he'll probably get people that are already dead and buried in places anyway too.
And that's interesting because when we've seen in the previews is that I've seen in the previews that Varys is down in the crypts at Winterfell. I've seen Arya's down there in the crypts. She's actually running around scared, which I don't know if to you guys. Arya being scared should tell you.
It's a big deal, yeah.
Yeah, there's some shit's going to happen. You got a faceless assassin who's running just completely terrified. That's something bad's really going to happen at Winterfell. But they're in the crypts, and there's hundreds of dead Starks down there, dead Stark kings. And there's no reason for me to believe that he can't raise them.
That'd be crazy. Yeah, that would be insane if that happened.
You fight your dad.
Yeah, when you send your women and children down there, people who can't fight, and all of a sudden now people are waking up and they're buried with their swords, so they're armed.
Yeah.
How do you fight them off? Varys ain't gonna fight them off. But the crypts of Winterfell are supposed to be vast. It's not like a basement. It's not like a really big basement. It's like having a cave system under there. So that could be a potential escape route for them too when things go bad. So it'll be interesting. I think they're gonna lose the battle. Winterfell's gonna get overrun.
Well, yeah, I think that everything in the north is gonna get taken.
It's gonna get taken. So where's the fallback point?
Right where, somewhere near King's Landing. I think they're gonna reach that all the way up to.
Is a prediction now, since obviously Jaime's headed north, is you basically think that entire area is just gonna be taken over by the White Walkers. So then whoever's left, the remains, are gonna basically head back, west, or to King's Landing. I don't know if that would make any sense for them to do that.
They're gonna have to hit the King's Road, and they're gonna have to go south. Now it's gonna be a tough retreat. A lot of times in ancient battles, you wanted to give the army a route to retreat, because if you surround them completely, you're gonna lose a lot of your own soldiers in the fighting. Because they're going to fight, they're going to realize they're trapped, and they're going to fight their way out as far as possible. Instead of you losing 5,000 soldiers, just letting them retreat on their own once they're broken, you're going to lose 10,000. Night King don't have to worry about that. So he's going to surround him, and his army doesn't sleep. So he can follow him as long as they want. So they're going to have to hit the King's Road, and they're going to have to hit it fast and really retreat. Now, the best fallback point once they get south is going to be Moat Cailin, which is, you saw that the Ironborn held that, and Theon went and tried to liberate them, and Ramsay skinned them all alive. That's in the neck. The only way through the neck is through the Marshy Bog, which is really tough to get through, or going through the King's Road, which cuts through Moat Cailin. So you have a choke point there that you could fall back to, but if they overran Winterfell, the chances are they can overrun there. So you're kind of running out of options. The next logical place would be the Eyrie. What did they say in Season 1? It's impregnable. You have the road in, which you can defend. It's a good choke point. The numbers for the Army of the Dead mean nothing. in a small area like that. So, I mean, theoretically, it'd be a great
That's
place to make
where
a stand.
everything is like literally the only way in is like through that narrow.
Yeah, the narrow little pass.
Okay.
And then the fortress itself is really high up. And Braun said, "Give me 10 good men and a pair of climbing spikes, and I'll impregnate the bitch." You know, but it's a really good place for them to fall back to. That's kind of in the north. Now, I mean, they got to go a little east. You got to go south, and then they got to go a little east. But I mean, logically, if you're going to be setting up, you'd want to set a garrison at Mo Kalen there to try to slow them down, try to slow them like King down a little bit, and then kind of work your way east into the Uri there and make it tough for them to go through there. Because again, I mean, they're going to have superior numbers. You need to fight in a narrow pass like that so that their numbers don't mean a whole lot. Now, from Cersei's point of view, do you think she wants to stay in King's Landing?
I think she's going to. She's probably going to. See, I think Jaime, right? You said he's going north, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think he's going to go north. I think he's going to see all that shit happening. He's going to come back and tell her. But I think she's going to be dead, and Jaime's going to have to kill her.
So I mean, you think Cersei's gonna be?
Yeah,
killed by
I think Jaime's going to have to kill her.
Yeah, because then it'll be like a flashback for him, right? Because he'll be like, okay, now she's the Mad Queen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because he already killed the Mad King and Aegon, and now he'll be like, okay, this is exactly what happened before because she just is not gonna stop until like everybody's basically gone. It makes sense. I mean, for him to do that, but I guess it would just be like a circle, considering like the first, season. You see what they're basically doing to each other.
Yeah, I'm being really sad because I've kind of like grown accustomed to that relationship.
Yeah.
Like, just like.
But you've seen
I've accepted their little incest.
You've seen the character development for Jaime as well, because he was incredibly hated. Like, he was probably one of the worst characters in season 1, and now in season 7, after him losing his hand. Mm-hmm. He was one of the best, like, soldiers, right? He was like one of the
best swordsmen.
Swordsmen ever.
As soon as he got captured, he was like a better person.
Yeah, because obviously, Brienne of Tarth. Yeah.
Tarth. Yes. Tarth.
Tarth.
Yes.
It obviously that relationship that they had, because like they were traveling together. You could see Jaime was changing. He didn't actually whether or not you couldn't tell whether or not it was for real or if it was just acting. But I mean, clearly now, like season 8 that he's coming up, he's not as hated as much as he was, in the first season, which I think is like huge. I think that's what Game of Thrones, like, probably one of my favorite parts is character development, because you see these characters just, evolve in front of you. Like the people that you'd never expected to actually have any significance on the show are like huge parts now.
Yeah, they did say that Jaime, by the end of the series, like people will finally realize that like he's not as bad as they think he is, because. I was watching something earlier, and they said when Brandon Stark was going back in time, like he would like whisper. Remember how he whispered to his dad? Mm-hmm. He was like, "Dad," and he was like, "What was that?" So they said that he was talking to the Mad King, telling him like, what's beyond the wall and stuff, which is why he had the wildfire in the first place, to burn him. But then I guess not only because of the whole incest thing and how. Their mental health issues and everything. He went crazy on top of that, and then wiped everything out.
Is there even any wildfire left?
Yeah,
there's a lot.
There's a lot actually.
Okay.
Yeah. They got buried under a lot of different landmarks in King's Landing. I think that Cersei would try to set a trap in King's Landing. She would actually abandon the city and the Red Keep and set a trap. I think she's going to take the Golden Company, and she's probably going to hide out Storm's End, which is where is what Stannis held during Robert's Rebellion. You can hold Storm's End with a really small garrison because of the way it's designed. I think she remembers that, and it's going to be a better base of operations for her. And it'll actually be close to Dragonstone too. So if Daenerys tries to fall back to Dragonstone, she could send Euron Greyjoy and the Golden Company to try to destroy her while she's at Dragonstone, and maybe unprotected while most of the army's away. I think, but going back to Jaime though, you guys touched on that. I think of all characters, I think he has the most potential to kind of branch out in a bunch of different areas. Mm-hmm. Everybody else is kind of on a path.
Yeah.
I could see a couple different paths for him. Right now, Dolorous Edd is the 99th Lord Commander of the Night's Watch. Gotta imagine they're gonna have a 1,000th Lord Commander. Who better than Jaime Lannister? Mm. Jaime Lannister's already given his life to servitude, basically, as a Kingsguard. And if you remember calling back to season 1, they said there would be a lot of callbacks to season 1. He teased Jon Snow when he met him out in the courtyard about going into the Night's Watch, about how loyal it is, and I bet you can't wait to meet some of your comrades there. Don't worry though, it's only for life. He really gave him a hard time about joining the Night's Watch. And once Cersei's dead and out of the way, I mean, to give his life purpose, he might do that. Also, I mean, what does everybody call him? The whole run of the show, whole run of the book.
Kingslayer.
Kingslayer.
Yeah.
Who better than to kill the Night King? Everybody, the Kingslayer had such a bad connotation throughout the whole thing, and now he's going to go and slay the Night King. Talk about turning it on its head. Yeah. So, like I said, there's so many. I mean, could he end up with Brienne? Could he end up with? Well, could he kill Cersei? Yeah, he could be the one killing Cersei. I mean, the prophecy said it would be, the younger sibling, but that's open to a lot of interpretation. Remember, in Old Valyria, they don't use words that mean male or female. They're genderless. So it could be Arya Stark killing her. Yeah. They just said a younger child.
Wait, real quick. Speaking of siblings, right? Because I had someone tell me this, and I haven't looked into it yet. They said that Tyrion Lannister could be more than he actually is, because my friend said that before he killed Tywin, and he said to him, "I don't even know if you're my son." And then it got me thinking. It's like, all right, so maybe there was a relationship with his wife and the Targaryen, and because of obviously him being what he is, on top of the love of my life cheated on me and died giving birth to you, like that's why I hate you so much.
So the timelines sync up with Joanna Lannister, and oddly enough, when we were talking about incestuous relationships, she was the first cousin of Tywin, Joanna Lannister, so it runs in their family. The whole Jaime Cersei thing, they wonder why they're together. Well, your father and your mother were first cousins. So, I mean, they were in an incestuous relationship as it is. But Joanna does go to King's Landing around the time that Tyrion could have been conceived. And they do make passages in the books that he doesn't look like the traditional Lannister. He's got two different color eyes, which with the Targaryens, they actually had purple eyes. They had gray hair, like silver kind of hair. He was more blonde than Jaime or Cersei. He was almost blonde, kind of like grayish, like the Targaryens would have. So he didn't have the traditional Lannister look where they had that golden blonde hair. He looked a lot different than the twins did. Jon's a Targaryen, killed his mom during childbirth. Daenerys is a Targaryen, killed her mom during childbirth. So did Tyrion. So there's a lot of different things that they point to in that direction. Will they go there? I don't think so. I was actually somebody who subscribed to that back when they had the 3 dragons, because you'd think the dragon would have 3 heads. And they would all mount the dragons and ride the dragons together. Now they're down to 2 dragons, and it seems like he is not taking well to their relationship. So I kind of look at it now and say probably Tyrion isn't a Targaryen. And the scene you're calling back to is when, he's on the shitter and he gets killed. He said, you're my son, you're this, and then he goes, at the end he says, you're no son of mine. Basically because he shot his father, I think is what he was saying there.
Yeah, that's what I thought at first, but she brought it up.
And you know what? Of all his children, they try to say, well, Cersei was most like Tywin. The Iron Bank, the representative from the Iron Bank, Tycho Naharis, said that, or not, that's not his name, Tycho Nastaris, I think is his name, but he said, you're your father's daughter to Cersei. And of all the children, Jaime's probably the least like him, and Cersei's kind of similar. Tyrion's the most like him of all of them, which is ironic because he was the one they couldn't stand. Mm-hmm. So, it's interesting that they were able to do that. They'll probably do it in the books. I don't think in the show there's just enough time to kind of develop that. Oh, by the way, they're gonna be breaking the news that Jon's a Targaryen.
So
in the late
you don't
season.
think that there's anything with him when he went down to feed the dragon, and how the dragons were not taking kindly to anyone else, but when he went to touch the dragon,
don't need the help. He said
it was fine.
Yeah, he was fine.
When Jon touches the dragon, it's fine.
It's fine.
Daenerys, so you don't think there's anything involving that?
It's like you said, it's interesting. Now they're kind of out of time. They got 6 episodes. They're just going to be introducing that Jon's a Targaryen and breaking it to him. I just don't think they have enough time in the show to now say he is. Will they go that route in the book? Potentially, yes. because I think he was having dreams about being a dragon in the book. He was very obsessed with dragons. They always made it a point to say that he was very obsessed with dragons as a child, and he loved to read the stories about them. But I think from a show's standpoint, in the final 6 episodes, I just don't think they have enough time to introduce that. Book-wise, yes, they could go that route. I think George R.R. Martin's been sprinkling little things in there that if he decides to go that route, they'll make sense.
Yeah.
But he doesn't necessarily have to do that. That's my take on it. But yes, there's enough in there to say that yes, he could potentially be a Targaryen. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, you're right because there's only 6 episodes left. So then for them to basically introduce and say, hey, guess what? Tyrion's also a Targaryen too. Maybe as a cliffhanger. Do you think Tyrion makes it out? Like, do you think he survives at the end?
He's a survivor, so yes, I do.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, he's
do.
smart enough.
Who else is going to rule the Seven Kingdoms?
I mean, he could be handed the king, right?
No,
Yeah.
who else is going to rule? Because think about it. When Daenerys was away, doing whatever, what was she doing? What was she doing? What was she doing?
So
When she was chasing the dragon, or
no,
she got
yeah,
kidnapped.
the
Right?
Sons of the Harpy came to the stadium, and she had to leave because Drogon flew down, and she got on his back, and she left because things in Marine really went to shit. So she had to get out.
Then she got kidnapped by the Dothraki.
The Dothraki.
Yeah. But when Tyrion was taken over, like, he did a pretty good job.
He did reasonably well.
Which is why I think that he could lead everything, because he knows he knows how bad things can get, and he knows how good things can be, and that's why I think he's like the perfect balance for leading that.
He was a fantastic hand to the king. So was his father. Again, they're a lot alike. And we were talking about leaders and hands of the king, and if you remember, Tywin Lannister had a conversation with Tommen when Joffrey died. What makes a great king? And it's listening to the people that are around you and knowing that you don't know a whole lot. Jon Snow, what does he not do? He doesn't listen to anybody around them. Sansa told him not to go to fight the way he was fighting in Battle of the Bastards. You don't have enough men. He's going to coax you to come out, and you're going to get trapped. And everything she said happened. Enough people warned him about some of his pitfalls, and he doesn't listen. Tyrion's the type of person he does listen. He knows what he knows. That's what he says. He drinks and he knows things. He knows what he knows, and he's willing to listen to people, and he's willing to learn. He learned a lot from Tywin Lannister. Tywin wanted nothing to do with him, but he learned a lot from him. So, of all the people, of the 3 main characters you're looking at, who has the best chops to rule would be him. But at the same time, too, he has no real claim to it. So he's going to be the hand. So if things are going to work out in Westeros, he's going to need to be hand to the king, and somebody's going to have to listen to him.
He's a Targaryen.
Unless, of course, he's a Targaryen, because he was born before the other 2.
Yes.
That would be a curveball.
That would be a real curveball at the end.
Nah, the real curveball is Theon Greyjoy, just sitting on the Iron Throne.
Oh gosh, with no dick.
Yeah.
I'm actually kind of hoping Hot Pie wins it. That would be great.
The Dickless
God.
King. Oh, the one that's cooking the
Hot
bacon
Pie.
shit?
Yeah, don't brown the butter. That's what he said. Or no, brown the butter is what he's doing. Yeah.
He's Arya's like best friend.
Yeah.
I made this for you, Arya. Like,
Mm.
nah. As long as it's not Wait, who do I want to? I need what you say? Varys. I need him to die.
He's gonna die.
I need
Probably, yeah.
I can't wait. I want to actually see the Red Witch die.
She's gonna die too. She predicted that.
No, like I want to see. Like I want to like see it. Like
This is,
I
like,
can't
satisfying
stand-
to you?
I can't stand her.
Melisandre?
Yeah, I can't. Like I'm like, why? And then
I mean,
she-
I kind of like was attracted to her, but then obviously that first episode of
And
last
When
year.
she took the amulet off.
Yeah, I was just
Oh
like,
yeah. They
Oh,
could have
boy.
just showed like maybe like a silhouette or something. They
Yeah.
didn't have
Or
to,
just
like,
from the neck up.
Yeah, like,
Yeah.
I get it. She's naked. She's old. I get it. Like it was like, nah, you're gonna see all this.
Yeah.
Like,
Jesus.
ugh.
Imagine if you're eating something and you watch that scene, you're like, oh gosh.
Imagine that's the first episode you're watching. You're like,
Yeah.
what did I just see here?
Believe me, when I watched the first episode of Game of Thrones and how it ended, obviously when, Bran falls off the tower, and all you see is Jaime and Cersei just getting it on, I was just like, what did I just watch? Like, what was that 45 minutes, 50 minutes of my life that just went by? All right, episode 2 now.
Yeah.
That's where it was.
45 minutes of incest.
And that's what I think. So people that don't like Game of Thrones, and they'll be like, oh, like, how many episodes I've actually seen? And they'll be like, oh, I've only, like, seen up to season 1. I'm like, well, that's probably the problem because season 1 is kind of slow. It obviously picks up season 2, season 3.
That shit ain't slow.
Well, no, I mean, because you can't judge. Would you judge a show after 1 season?
I mean, you can, but not something like that.
Yeah, but as popular as Game of Thrones is,
like there's certain shows you can be like, all right, this is not gonna work.
No, it makes sense, but I just feel like if people give up after season 1, I just think it's like unfair to like the actual, like you're missing out on so much. Like so much actually happens in the show, and it's like season 1 is kind of just like building up to it.
Yeah.
For the folks who didn't read the book, season 1's got to be a little bit of a shock because I mean you think about it, they introduced King Robert. Okay, so he's the king. Everybody's bowing to him.
Yeah.
They introduced Ned Stark, and he's a recognizable face. Sean Bean. He's been in a lot of movies. Dies in a lot of movies, but he's been in a lot of movies. So you're never really expecting him to die. Viserys Targaryen. He's supposed to be the heir to the throne, and then you meet Khal Drogo. He's some badass warlord. They're all dead by episode 9 of the show.
Yeah.
Some of them didn't make it more than 4 episodes. You're thinking like, what the hell? Like, where does the show go from here? So
that's exactly what I was thinking. When they shot his head off, I'm like, what now?
Yeah, I mean, when I know a lot of people when Baelish got behind him and said, "I told you not to trust me," people were thinking like, "Oh wow, how's Ned Stark gonna get out of this?" I'm thinking to myself, he ain't. I know he ain't. I already read this part, but it's crazy to think. You had, and he was the biggest name on the show. I mean, Cersei. Look at Lena Headey. She's been in a couple different movies, but the most recognizable character
Sean Bean
was Sean Bean.
Mm-hmm.
And Sean Bean did what Sean Bean did. He died. He dies in every.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, when I was watching the show for the first time, I was like, oh, awesome! Like Sean Bean is in this, and then like what is it? I don't know what episode he dies in.
Episode 9, Baelor.
Yeah, he just gets his head chopped off, and I'm like, now who's my favorite character? Like I really liked him. I was like leading up to him. I was like, yo,
I always jump from character to character.
Listen, man.
Yeah, like Robert Baratheon too. Yeah. Just a fat drunk.
I'm still
king,
upset. I'm still pissed at Robb Stark.
I don't know. All right, so just to close out, what do you think is going to happen? Like, just how is this going to end?
Well, let's hear how you feel like it's gonna. The 6 episodes that's gonna happen.
All right, listen.
Like, what's your prediction?
Cersei's gonna die.
Okay.
I do think Daenerys will probably die too. I don't know. I can't say who's gonna be like on the Iron Throne. I honestly kind of just wish that it would just like all like end, like the Night King just like takes the fuck over and all that. They're not really bad people. Like they weren't, weren't they like just humans, like just being humans?
I mean, they're not really bad people, but they're killing everybody.
No, I'm just saying, like, weren't they just humans being humans?
So it's
fighting the little people in the forest.
Yeah, so it's an interesting take because when the show ends, the next prequel they're gonna do is the Age of Heroes, which is going to be about them bringing the Night King in. So in the Age of Heroes, mankind crosses from Essos through Dorne. Dorne actually was connected to Essos on the Arm of Dorne. And when they got there, they were encroaching on the lands of the Children of the Forest and the Giants, who were the native, humanoid population living there at the time. And they smashed the Arm of Dorne and did everything they could to try to keep human beings from coming there. And they created the White Walkers. There was going to be like their super weapon, and it turns out their super weapon turned against them, and they had to unite with mankind to try to stop him. So so I mean he's bad. I mean they made him with good intentions, and it turned out wrong. I mean he completely turned against them. So he's not. he's like he's an
innocent.
Yeah, no, he's like a demon.
Well, now he is with all the magic in him. But was he like originally? Like,
he was just a man.
Just a man.
One of the first men. Yep.
He didn't do nothing.
Stuck dragon glass right to his heart.
See?
Yeah.
He didn't do nothing.
Yeah.
So I'm going with the Night King just winning. Like I wouldn't
the slate clean.
I wouldn't be mad if the Night King just won. Like just say that I just wouldn't be mad.
It's such a horrible universe. I mean, you talk about Robb Stark dying, and all these people are backstabbers, and I mean, think about the Brotherhood Without Banners. You thought that they were all great guys. Well, they killed that whole sept. A couple of them, just for the sake of doing it. It's a really harsh world to live in. I mean, only one person died of old age in there. It was Aemon Targaryen because he was just kind of hanging out the wall, So it's a really tough place to live. So yeah, wiping the slate clean might not be a bad thing.
Yeah. All right. So what do you?
Who knows? Who knows?
What do you think?
Honestly, I have no idea what's gonna really happen because it's like yeah, the White Walkers are coming to, Winterfell, the North. They're going to do their own thing, wipe out it, whoever basically is left. It's kind of like unpredictable because that whole preview that they showed with like Arya running, and like now that you've told me that maybe the White Walkers will resurrect the dead, and like who knows what George R. Martin's thinking? Like he might end up killing. Yeah, I was about to
yeah, you got your universe mixed up a little bit there. I heard it too.
Jar Jar's coming.
So maybe I do think like a lot of major characters will die. I think one thing is for sure though, is that Tyrion ends up being handed to the king. I think that's gonna end up happening. Mm-hmm. If Daenerys dies, who knows? Maybe Jon kills Daenerys. Who knows? Something like that basically happens. Who I think will be at the on top of the throne? I believe Jon Snow will be on the Iron Throne. That is my prediction.
That's my prediction too.
Jon Snow.
I actually think. So I think Jaime's going to end up being the Lord Commander of the Night's Watch. He'll be the 1000th Lord Commander.
That's a great prediction, to be honest with you. Now, like obviously, things are coming together. Definitely feel like that might actually happen.
I actually think Cersei's going to screw herself. Her big thing is that she's, in the Game of Thrones, she's like this master planner, and this whole thing with Euron Greyjoy and the Golden Company. So Euron Greyjoy, once he was banished from the Iron Islands, he sailed all around the world. He made connections everywhere, and I could see him being a privateer for the Iron Bank and having a connection there. And this is all a plot between the Iron Bank. Because the Iron Bank is so far in debt with Westeros. And seeing what she did with the Sept of Baelor, I don't think they think that she's actually an adequate leader. I think they're kind of just leading her on. I think the Golden Company...
They owe her money?
No, she owes them money. Lots of it.
Oh, yeah. I'm about to say.
They said she paid her debts. But still, if they're going to sink money into Westeros, they're not going to do it with her. Because they can't trust her. I mean, she killed all of her enemies in one shot. One fell swoop, she blew up the Sept of Baelor and killed them all. Is that somebody you want to be doing business with?
I'll keep one eye open.
Yeah. So I think the Golden Company and Euron and the Iron Bank are all in cahoots. I think Euron's going to end up killing her, and he's going to be the younger brother that comes and kills her, and that's going to be her demise. Her grand plan that she put in motion is going to end up being her demise. Jaime's not going to be there to protect her, and that's going to be what's going to happen as far as her, her story. That's how it's going to end.
So you think Euron kills her?
I think Euron kills her. And I think that the whole thing with the Iron Bank, I think that was all a plot with Euron. They wouldn't put Euron on the throne. Could be totally wrong on that. I might be reaching a little bit, but I think that would be a really good twist to how this would all end. I think Snow's going to win the Iron Throne. They always talked about, the Azor Ahai prophecy. We're going to see that, in the prequel. That's going to be the main focus of it. That Azor Ahai was supposed to come back and lead the people back out of the night. And that Jon was going to be Azor Ahai. The way I from reading about like all of the past stuff with like Rhaegar Targaryen, I think he was actually Azor Ahai, and his demise is very reflective of what Azor Ahai originally was. So when he originally fought the White Walkers, he defeated the White Walkers with a sword called Lightbringer, and he forged this sword for 25 days, and he went to go and dip it in water to try to finish it off and cool it, and it broke on the water. So then he said, all right, well, I'll create another sword. So he created another sword 50 days after trying to forge this thing. He tried to break it in the lion's heart, was what he tried to use to try to cool it down this time. Sword broke again. So the third time, he built this sword, took 100 days to forge the sword, and the one true love he had in the world, he buried it in her heart, and he was able to forge the sword. And that was the sword he used to bring back Dawn and defeat the White Walkers. The way I look at it is Rhaegar was Azor Ahai, and his first chance to try to use the weapon he had, it broke on water. Robert Baratheon killed him on the trident. So he died. Water broke at. The second weapon he had was his first son, Aegon. How did he die? Well, he died at the orders of Tywin Lannister. He was broken by a lion. Third one, it was, the one true love, Lyanna Stark. She died during childbirth. Basically she died. He was able to forge the perfect weapon. That's Jon Snow. Jon Snow's going to be the perfect weapon to fight the White Walkers. He's actually Lightbringer. He's not Azor Ahai. He's Lightbringer. Mm-hmm. So he's destined now to rule in that stead. So that's how I think it's going to end. I think it's the Song of Ice and Fire. It's about their relationship, him and Lyanna's relationship. And their love, and that's Jon Snow. So it has to end with him. Now, George R. R. Martin says it's going to be a bittersweet ending. You know, what's that mean? I don't know.
Well, I guess bittersweet would mean, like, obviously Daenerys dying,
yes,
and then Jon winning.
And Jon winning the throne.
So, I mean...
You get one of the two that you like on the Iron Throne.
Yeah.
Or the Night King just
comes and wipes the slate clean.
and then everyone else on the other side of the narrow sea is safe.
Yeah.
Unless they take the boats.
Have they already announced, like, prequels that they're, like, in progress on making HBO?
Yeah, so the first one that they talked about, and they're actually casting for it right now, is going to be... And see, I really wish they wouldn't have done this. They're going to do The Long Night, which is like the Age of Heroes. It's the original Azor Ahai. And basically the first time they fight the White Walkers. Well, we're doing that right now. You know, I much rather would have seen... like Robert's Rebellion.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, too.
And that was one of the ones they're tinkering around with, so they might still do that. But I would have really liked to have seen that, because, I mean, it's a good transition. It's a lot of the same characters you know, but they're younger.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting.
Names that you...
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
you get to see, like, a young Ned Stark, young Robert Baratheon.
Young Blackfish. I mean, the thing is, like, he was such a cool character, and he got very little screen time. You know, they could do the Blackfire Rebellions. They haven't really mentioned that. That's a really cool story. Blackfires are the bastards of the Targaryen line. And they had 5 different wars. And the last one was called the War of the Nine Penny Kings. It was really interesting. It was like, you know, Hoster Tully when he was a young guy, Tywin Lannister when he was a young guy, Blackfish Tully. I mean, there's a lot of like the really older characters in there when they were in their prime. So that would be something really cool too. You could do the Doom of Valyria. That's interesting. I mean, you know, Targaryens were... People don't realize this. They think the Targaryens were like this royal house from Valyria. They weren't. They were just one of the 40 houses that were the main people there. And the only reason why they left and went to Dragonstone was because one of the relatives had a vision that, you know, they were going to have the Doom. You know, the volcano was going to eat all of Valyria. So they left, you know, 20 years, and eventually, you know, the Doom happened, and all the rest of the royal families of Valyria died, except for them. And they're the only ones left. But that would be interesting, too. I mean, you know, you're talking about, in that world, I mean, they were basically supposed to be Atlantis. You know, the history of Atlantis, it was supposed to be this gorgeous city, this technologically advanced city, living in a very not so technologically advanced world.
Yeah.
So it'd be pretty neat to see that. Obviously, they need to use a lot of CGI, but it'd be pretty cool. But there's so many things in different directions that they could go in. I mean, they could even do the Greyjoy Rebellion. They could do a mini-series on that. That'd be pretty cool. But so far, yeah, they've announced Robert's Rebellion. That's one of the ones they're looking at, the Age of Heroes, and I think they were trying to tinker around with something with the Targaryens. And I've actually seen them mention too that they're going to go into the future, like a modern day Westeros.
No, thank you.
Yeah,
No.
And like I saw, and like I don't know if that's true or not, but I saw like a trailer and like they show like they show like Bravos. You could see the Titan of Bravos there, and it's like a regular city that looks like Singapore. You know, I don't know really what you would do with that, but I mean that would be interesting. But I think it'd be a 1 season thing, and people would be like, I'm done with this. You know?
Yeah, I don't want to see that. I want to see Jon Snow Jr. like.
Yeah, on his iPhone.
Where's the Wi-Fi?
Well, it's interesting too. So like they're a world with magic, but you know, in 4,000 years, you're going to see this with the prequel. Nothing really has changed. They haven't really had like a technological advancement. They don't use electricity. They don't use any. So for like 4,000 or 5,000 years, nothing's really changed. Where you look at our world, it's changed a lot.
Yeah.
No, I mean, whatever HBO comes out with, I feel like it's gonna basically be a hit. But if they do Robert's Rebellion, I think that's gonna be like
The biggest.
incredible because you'll be able to get like an entire backstory as to leading up to what Game of Thrones, you know, is.
And the funny thing is too, so like Robert Baratheon was like a larger than life kind of character, and you saw a little bit in the show when he was talking about his first kill. You know, he was a Tarly kid, and guy was screaming "wait!" He was laughing after he killed the guy. You know, so the whole. You get the right actor in there that has that kind of personality, and he was the type of guy who, you know, he'd make friends out of his enemies. So he was like this like lovable but big, huge, strong warrior type. So it would be really interesting to see who they cast. But like the Battle of the Bells, you know, his army was dispersed, and Ned Stark's army just happened to show up in time and save the battle and rout John Connington. But he was hiding out in brothels. You know, he lost the Battle of Ashford. They broke his army. He ran back to there, and he was kind of hiding. And the prostitutes were hiding him from house to house to make sure that they didn't find him. So it was a pretty interesting thing. You get this guy who's just all into drinking and whoring and stuff like that. You bring him, make him the main character of the show. It could be pretty funny as well. Yeah. You wouldn't think about that with Game of Thrones, but it could have some comedy to it.
Yeah, you're right.
So I think we're all ready for season
1 week
8.
away.
1 week.
6 episodes. Hopefully, doesn't disappoint. Hopefully, we don't cry. Hopefully,
I don't think so.
You
No, I think there is going to definitely be some crying. Because there's obviously people that you've grown attached to, and you're just like, wow.
But if anyone watching this or listening disagrees with us, that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah, we want to hear other people's theories.
Yeah,
I'm sure like everybody has their own idea as to what's going to basically happen.
Yeah, no one knows what's going to happen.
Until,
Except for Joe Jonas, he knows. Because he's dating Sansa or whatever.
I think. Well, I mean, she can't even tell anybody.
No, she told him.
Oh.
She told him the ending. It had to sound like some.
Not NDA.
Yeah.
Probably an NDA.
Yeah.
Crazy.
HBO about to fuck up the whole Jonas Brothers.
Well, I mean, because I've been watching the interviews because Kit Harington was on SNL last night. He was hosting, and then I've been watching he was on I think Colbert, and so was Emilia Clarke and all that stuff. And I think Emilia Clarke was like, yeah, I told my mom the ending, but my mom has amnesia, so she probably doesn't remember the ending.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, I mean, who knows?
Who knows?
It's gonna be exciting. It's 1 week away.
They've done a good job guarding it.
Yeah, because I mean, there's huge secrecy. You don't see any pictures of them in their costumes and
No, you see the pictures. It just don't matter.
Well, yeah, I mean, you don't just saying
you can't be
LeBron,
shit, they're over there by the ice and it's snowing.
Yeah.
You don't know what's gonna happen.
Yeah, they've done a good job kind of keeping that close to the vest, along with Endgame too. I mean, very little's leaked about both.
Especially with
yeah,
how I think someone did hack HBO's everything a few years back.
They did. I don't know if those scripts leaked, but they don't know if they were the actual scripts or they were just stuff made up.
Yeah, didn't 2 episodes come out before that they needed to? Remember when that happened? I think
4 of them came out.
Yeah, 4 of them.
Yeah, because the 10 episodes. I guess it would have been. It was season 5. Season 5 was a terrible season. That was one of the episodes when Barris and Selmy died, and that's considered the worst of all the seasons anyway. So if they're gonna leak any of them, it was good that they leaked season 5. The only good episode in season 5 was Hard Home, where Snow went north of the wall and saw the Night King. That was a great episode. Aside from that, the rest of the season was terrible. So.
All right. Are we ready to get out of here?
Let's do it.
Yeah, we're good.
I'm not good at goodbyes, but goodbye.